Feeling a little unsettled and stressed with the way things are in our world? Experience the peace of Jesus with Finding Peace, our 5-day devotional. Visit purposely.com to sign up. Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Okay, real quick, what's the best news you've heard this week? Maybe your friend just got engaged. The book you ordered finally came in. You got the job. The funds came through, or the test results were clear. My friend recently texted me to tell me her son was getting baptized, and that was such a joy to hear. Good news is meant to be shared and celebrated together. Hey, this is Jen. You're listening to the Bible for Busy People podcast, where we have been talking about literary genres of the Bible. These are different categories and styles of writing that are written with intention. And when you understand these genres a little bit better, you can go into the text with more understanding and more context for what you're about to read. Today we're talking about the Gospels. The word gospel comes from the Greek word euangelion, meaning good news or good message. The Gospels in the Bible are Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and a special mention for Acts. Acts isn't exactly a gospel, but it also kind of fits the same genre. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all biographies of Jesus' life. Each can stand alone, but together they give us a more full picture of Jesus' life. Each had a different focus and audience, which is pointed out well by Jeffrey Kranz of the Overview Bible website, as well as Sister Terry Bednarz of the Sisters of Mercy website. Both of them share some examples of how different each book is. So Matthew shows how Jesus fulfills prophecies and was the Messiah, references the Old Testament, and would have likely been speaking to a largely Jewish audience. Matthew sets Jesus up as the Messiah by starting with his genealogy. Mark is shorter and full of action, and it's meant to appeal to a wider audience. Mark focuses on Jesus as the Son of God and as a servant. Mark shows Jesus' humanness, how he gets tired, hungry, how he empathizes, etc. Luke was non-Hebrew and probably wrote to a Gentile audience, and Luke emphasizes how Jesus came to save all nations. Luke used terms Gentiles would have understood and talked about the oppressive structure of Roman rule. John persuades readers to see Jesus as divine and focuses a lot on the supernatural and Jesus' identity as the Word, the truth, and the light. So why don't the Gospels all agree? I appreciated these words from Ryan Liguori of the Wisconsin Center for Christian Studies. He said, "The main objective of the Gospels is not to convince us that the Gospels are correct. Instead, the main objective of the Gospels is to convince us that Jesus is worth following." He also noted that having different viewpoints of Jesus' life come because Jewish tradition has long prioritized story over doctrine, and that differing viewpoints show that these were eyewitness accounts. They were not rehearsed or regurgitated speeches. Here's one story that is in all 4 accounts. Not every story about Jesus is in all 4 accounts of the Gospels, but here's one of them. It's Jesus' baptism. In Matthew 3, verses 13 through 17, it says, "Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John the Baptist. But John tried to deter him, saying, 'I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?' Jesus replied, 'Let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness.' Then John consented. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, 'This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased.'" Mark 1, verse 9 says, "At that time, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. Just as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, 'You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased.'" Luke 3 says, "When all the people were being baptized, Jesus was baptized too. And as he was praying, heaven was opened, and the Holy Spirit descended on him in bodily form like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, 'You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased.'" And then in John 1, verse 32, it says, "Then John gave this testimony. I saw the Spirit come down from heaven as a dove and remain on him. And I myself did not know him, but the one who sent me to baptize with water told me, the man on whom you see the Spirit come down and remain is the one who will baptize with the Holy Spirit. I have seen and I testify that this is God's chosen one." I appreciate that even though these are different perspectives, the important details remain the same. And you can compare more stories in the different accounts in the Blue Letter Bible website under the heading of Harmony of the Gospels, which is in the show notes. Something that fascinates me about Jesus' story is that, as Hebrews 1 verse 3 says, the Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. As we read about Jesus and imagine what he was like, that's who God is, embodied. The times when we feel removed from God or we wonder about what God is like, we can look to Jesus. So all of that said, what do the Gospels tell us about God's heart and character? One thing that I can see is Jesus actively working for the wholeness and well-being of all people. What can we imagine Jesus was like as a human? I like to think about this, even just the most human characteristics. I really appreciate the Chosen TV show for this. There's one scene where Jesus attempts to play a sport with his friends, and he just fails miserably at it. And Jesus has never felt so relatable to me, as considering that he might have done just as poorly at sports as I do at sports. Jesus can relate to us in all the ways, but also Jesus was God and was the exact representation of God. So I hope you got something out of that. Let's talk again tomorrow about another literary genre of the Bible.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista Family of Ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.